think that the black Americans have been the only real diehard Americans here, because we're the only ones who carried the process through the process. That everyone else has to sort of like skip stages. We're the ones who marched, we're the ones who carried the Bible, we're the ones who carried the flag, we're the ones who tried to go through the courts. And being born American didn't seem to matter. Because we were born Americans, but we still had to fight for what we were looking for. And we still had to go through those channels and those processes.
I don't really care what you have to say. Facts over fiction is the motto replay. Muhammad Ali came up from the clay. Grassroots built up this USA. Now knowing your history, you'll get played. Equip yourself cause you came to slay any opponent that's up in our way. Look at Malcolm X and his delivery.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for joining on this wonderful Veterans Day. This is Emin, the Mass Media Group, in the building. We are running a little late behind schedule, so apologies about that, but it was definitely well worth it. If you haven't had a chance, you might see this on the replay. We got a update from our good brother, Divine, out there in New York. And in New York, they're actually going to be holding their first public hearing. So we're actually going to be trying to stream that. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe we'll catch maybe the first hour and a half, 2 hours of it, if they do happen to stream it, if we can get a stream live going on there. So we're going to try to do that. But after that, Kim and we actually have an event to attend afterward. So, but we'll try to capture what we can on that. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about, yes, post-election. And also, we're going to be playing a video clip of Governor Newsom and his upcoming pending emergency legislation meeting that they're supposed to be having in December. So we're going to be touching on those 2 points. And later on, as I stated in the previous broadcast, eventually we're going to see what's going on with the Trump administration in 2025, see what's ahead, and see what we can do as the American citizens of the United States, and in particular freedmen, what we have planned for, what our plans are ahead. And, I know there's a lot of fear going on right now about President Trump, but we are United States citizens and we need to plan accordingly. All right. So I'd like to once again give a homage and an ashe to Dr. T'Chaka Muhammad. May he rest in power. If you have not yet seen the interview that we did with him, he is one of the elders in Northern California, so he's been putting good work for the community. So he recently transitioned, so I definitely wanted to say ashe to that brother. May he rest in peace and in power, Dr. T'Chaka Muhammad. Let me make sure I got my audio, family. Make sure it's good. All right. So we have audio and we are good to go. Also, may Tony Todd rest in peace. He passed away recently, transitioned. Now he is an ancestor. All right, Mr. Todd recently passed away after a long illness at his home in Marina del Rey, California on November 6, 2024, at the age of 69. He is survived by a wife and two children. For those that don't know, Mr. Todd, he played in Candyman. So that was one of his most famous roles that he's played with and played in. And he's also played in many different roles as well, both in film and TV. So brother, may you rest in power, may you rest in peace. And we aren't getting any sponsor from Ice Cube at all. So just wanted to put that out there. But I definitely want to give Ice Cube a shout out. He has a really good track out right now called It's My Ego. All right, that's a good brother Ice Cube. So if you have not seen that, I'd definitely check it out, man. Ice Cube is still holding it down. It's amazing. After all these years, you would think, oh, okay, we're getting into our, we're getting to our middle age and we stopping. Nope, not at all. we got to keep going, brothers. So shout out to Ice Cube for holding it down. And also, if you have not gone to our Amazon, please go to our Amazon. I know y'all shopping during Veterans Day, after Veterans Day, etc. 2024, going to 2025, etc. We greatly appreciate your support. So go ahead and click on that link to help support this platform. Also, etmmediagroupstore.com. That's etmmediagroupstore.com. reparationsnowdoc.com. If you haven't yet to see the documentary, you can check us out there. And shout out to Coalition for Just and Equitable California. That's CJEC-official.org. That's CJEC-official.org to get updates on lineage-based reparations here in California. All right. So let's see here. Let's actually get right to it, because I know we have a lot to get into today. And I wanted to start with kind of a summary of what we're going to be talking about. This is kind of the feedback and the research that I looked at, and we're going to be focusing more on the Democrat side today and not necessarily with the Republicans and Donald Trump. We're actually going to do a slow walk with the Democrats, but then later on we're going to go into the Republicans. All right. But there are a couple of points that I definitely wanted to make today. And hey, if you have any comments on either side, the Republicans or the Democrats, and it's unfortunate that we don't have more voices that actually got recognition through this campaign process for the presidential election, because there were actually other candidates, the Green Party, for example, and also independents like Dr. Cornel West. Shout out to Dr. Cornel West and our good sister, Dr. Molina, for the independent run as well. We know that they didn't get a lot of support and a lot of finance, but I'm glad that they ran, because that's, I feel like that's what we need to do. If there's something that motivates us, then as citizens, we have every right to do so. So let's get into it. All right, for the 2024 U.S. presidential election, there's a couple points. In terms of Kamala Harris's campaign, some are saying that she relied too heavily on celebrities, with Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, Usher, etc. And I do think that she tried to rely too heavily on celebrities. That's just a note to take for all of our legislators out there that are running for office, that hey, you should really be boots on the ground. And I think that's what Trump did. I know that's my last point for Trump, but I think he had a pretty good ground game, especially with that McDonald's. When you're working at McDonald's, I thought that was great, because he wanted to get into the community, shake people's hands. And I'm not saying that Kamala actually didn't do that, but just from optics, really didn't see too much of that. All right. And so we're also going to be talking about her campaign that she raised $1 billion, comparatively speaking to Trump campaigns around $32 million. We're going to be talking about the losing of the black turnout vote as well. And there's also something to note that a lot of people are saying that, or one of the notes that was being portrayed is that, some people didn't want to vote for Kamala because she was a woman. And actually, that's not necessarily true. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016, actually beating Donald Trump at that time, but he did win the electoral college vote at that time in 2016. So the United States will support a U.S. woman as the president. Just unfortunately, Kamala Harris wasn't it. All right, we're going to be talking about President Obama and how he actually did not help the campaign at all, especially being very demeaning towards black men. And also, VP Kamala, she was actually not nominated by the DNC party, so we believe that hurt her as well. And also, the Democrats had a lower turnout than the previous election. All right, and also, there was a lot of fear mongering with Trump instead of just focusing on policy. So, for those who are living under a rock or not, I don't know. Maybe after the election, you just turned off and tuned out, which makes sense to me. I would do the same because we all need a little break from this political infrastructure that we live in, this onslaught of media. But we do appreciate you, so please like, share, and subscribe. All right. So let's go to this article before we read the current results of 11/10. It says former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in portions of a New York Times podcast interview published Friday, blamed Vice President Kamala Harris's election loss on President Joe Biden's late exit from the presidential race and the lack of Democratic primary. Pelosi told Lulu Garcia Navarro, a host of the interview, that had the President Biden gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. The newspaper said in a story about Thursday interview, the exchange won't be posted. Okay, so it looks like maybe it got posted at a later time. But yeah, that was one of the complaints, that people were having, that, the DNC actually, or Kamala Harris, she got picked instead of actually chosen by her peers. So the current results as of 11/10 is Donald Trump has 310 votes and Kamala Harris has 226 of the votes. So she did concede, and we will actually be playing a video, at least a snippet of her concession speech later on. All right, some of the U.S. Senate results. We currently have the GOP, the Republicans, which they gained 4 seats at 53, and the Democrats currently have 46. And there's 2 independent seats. All right. Looks like one in Vermont and Maine. And don't quote me, but I think one of them is Bernie Sanders. Don't quote me, but I think one of them is Bernie Sanders. All right, let's go to the House. All right. It's very close right now. Looks like the Republicans are at 213 and the Democrats are at 203. So to take the majority, it is 218. So that's 213, 203, and currently no independent or other party members for the House are up or in the results for the House. So that's there. All right, so it looks like the current governorship in the United States, looks like the Republicans are in the lead at 27, and then the Democrats are at 23. A lot of the governors have their electoral runs in, I believe, during the primaries, and I think the next one that's coming up is in 2026. So as you can see on the map, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just about a handful or more of races that are going on right now for governorship. So, but currently it looks like there's 27 Republicans and 23 Democrats. I'm gonna go ahead and play one of the commission. Let's see, not the commission. I'm tripping. The concession with Kamala. All right, and then we will go more into some of what's going on right now, or what happened to her campaign. All right, so let's see what Kamala has to say, if you haven't already seen it. I think it's probably like 12-15 minutes, but I just edited it down so we can get a snippet of what she had to say. Here we go.
Thank you all. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So let me say, and I love you back. And I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up, and as long as we keep fighting. To my beloved Doug and our family, I love you so very much. To President Biden and Dr. Biden, thank you for your faith and support. To Governor Walz and the Walz family, I know your service to our nation will continue. And to my extraordinary team, to the volunteers who gave so much of themselves, to the poll workers and the local election officials, I thank you all.
All right, so that was Kamala Harris. Let me once again just make sure my audio is good. All right, so that was Kamala Harris. All right, so we are good. All right, so the swing states. All right, it looks like Trump actually took all of the swing states, which would be Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nebraska, Georgia, and Wisconsin. And I think one big, actually they were all important, but if we look at Georgia, right, with the 50% Donald Trump and Kamala Harris at 48%. And we look at those numbers and we got to think what happened to that swing state in the last election with Joe Biden, right? And I know a lot of people aren't given, especially the Black grassroots and the Black American voting base, a lot of credit, or if you want to call it credit. I know as we go along into this program today, we see that actually the majority of Black people did vote for Kamala Harris. But there are some people that actually did, quote unquote, as they're calling it, sitting on the couch, or that did actually maybe not vote or participated actually on the presidential election side. So let's move on to Obama, as I was saying in one of the points in the summary slide. Why are Black men mad at Obama? This was an article that came out in October 18th, 2024 by Rashawn Ray and Keon L. Gilbert at the Brookings Institute. It says many Black men feel frustrated by Obama's comments on their support for Kamala Harris, seeing it as an oversimplification of their complex political concerns. A perceived disconnection between Obama, Harris, and the everyday experiences of Black men has contributed to feelings of alienation within the Democratic Party. Black men's grievances include being overlooked by the Democratic Party on key issues beyond criminal justice, such as economic opportunity and broader political representation. Unpacking Obama's comments, he suggests Black men are blinded by their gender to see the value of Harris as president. Black men do not understand the impact of another Trump presidency on democracy, crime, family policies, the economy, and health care access, and that Trump does not respect Black men and will harm Black communities. And just to go back a little bit for those, and don't want to play the video, but a couple months ago, Obama did make some disparaging comments at it looked like it was a gathering with predominantly black men. I don't remember exactly where it was, but we're actually going to, I think in this article, I think he does get quoted on what he said. So I just wanted to bring some context to that. All right, let's continue. Among most black men, there is consensus Obama went too far and needed to watch his tone. The call on the carpet has cracked the privacy screens across black men's social networks and brought conversations that normally occur when building community in the dark into the light. The key question is why? Why are so many black men aggrieved? We outlined the most central elephants, quote unquote, in the group chats of black men over the last several days. First, across racial groups, black men are one of the most loyal voting blocs to the Democratic Party, only second overall to black women. Additionally, black men have voted at higher rates for reproductive rights than men from other racial groups. Yet, Obama did not call out white, Latino, or Asian men, or even white women for their lack of support for Harris. Former President Barack Obama recently caused an uproar when he called out black men for what news reports and some polling indicate as less support. And this was actually, once again, prior to the election. So just to reiterate that, as less support for Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic presidential nominee. This outcry in the public square has reminded many black men of their voice and has led them to speak out about their support, concerns, and disinterest in the Harris-Walz campaign and the political field more broadly. Black Americans have offered a consistent refrain and critique of American democracy. With that refrain, Black Americans hold a range of political attitudes concerning the economy, family values, policing, and criminal justice reform and healthcare. Many people fail to embrace the political variations with black families and communities, which frequently get muddled with an oversimplistic two-party system. Obama, while speaking to staffers at a Harris campaign office in Pennsylvania, suggested that misogyny and sexism are the culprits of the lack of black men's support for Harris. Quote, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that, end quote, said Obama. Obama also spoke about former President Trump's history with black men, potentially alluding to past actions such as an ad demeaning the exonerated Central Park Five be given the death penalty, as well as Trump's federal lawsuit for failing to rent to black families. So once again, as noted, the American public, the citizenry, actually did vote for Hillary Clinton back in 2016. Young Black and Latino men say they choose Trump because of the economy and jobs. Here's how and why. Brian Leja, a 31-year-old small business owner from Belton, Texas, was not surprised that a growing number of Latino men of his generation voted for Donald Trump for president this year. Leja had voted for the Republican in 2016 and 2020. Leja's rationale was simple. He said he has benefited from Trump's economic policies, especially tax cuts. I am a blue-collar worker, Leja said, so tax breaks for small businesses are a deal for what I do. For Dejan Gillishaw, a consultant in Fairfax, Virginia, a vote for Trump was rooted in what he saw as Democrats' rhetoric not matching their actions. Quote, it's been a very long time since the Democrats ever really kept their promises to what they're going to do for the minority communities, end quote, he said. Gillishaw, 25, who is black, also voted for Trump twice before. This year, he said he thought the former president's, quote, minority community outreach really showed up, end quote. Trump gained a larger share of black and Latino voters than he did in 2020 when he lost to Democrat Joe Biden, and most notably among men under 45. According to AP Votecast, a nationwide survey of more than 120,000 voters. Even as Democrat Kamala Harris won majorities majority of Black and Latino voters, it wasn't enough to give the vice president the White House because of the gains Trump made. While about 4 in 10 young voters under 45 across racial and ethnic groups identified the economy as the top issue facing the country, older white and Latino voters were likely to also cite immigration, with about 1/4 of each saying that was the top issue. A clear majority of young Black voters described the economy as not so good or poor, compared with about half of older Black voters. Majorities of Latino voters, regardless of age, said the economy is in bad shape. That belief made it more difficult for Harris to highlight the actual numbers in the economy, which show that inflation has receded dramatically, unemployment remains low, and wages have risen. These voters simply did not feel that progress. This is the first time Alexis Uscanga, a 20-year-old college student from Brownville, Texas, voted in a presidential election. The economy and immigration are the issues that drove him to vote for Trump, he said. Quote, "Everything just got a lot more expensive than it once was for me," Uscanga said. "Gas, grocery shopping, even as a college student, everything has gone up in price, and that is a big concern for me and other issues like immigration." So why Trump won? In this article that was by that's whyy.org, it mentioned 9 takeaways. We're actually not going to go over all 9 takeaways because it's a pretty long article, but there were some key points that I do want to highlight. White voters went up as a share of the electorate for the first time in decades, helping Trump. White voters have sided with Republicans in every presidential election since at least 1976. And in this election, white voters went up as a share of the electoral from 67% to 71%. All right, so that is 67% to 71%. That is remarkable considering that, quite simply, white people are a smaller share of the population in the country than ever before. They have been steadily declining as a share of eligible voters, and that is not changing anytime soon because of growth with Latinos and Asian Americans. So the fact that they were a large share of the electorate than 4 years ago was a boon to Trump. Women turned out as a higher share, but not enough for Harris to win. Women were 53% of the electorate, up a point from 2020, but while Harris won a majority of women, including winning moms, while Trump won dads, she only won 53% of women, down from Biden's 57%. That was in particular because of the pronounced gender divide by education among white voters. Harris won a higher share of white women with college degrees, but Trump won an even wider margin with women who didn't go to college. And there were more of them who voted. Add to that Trump's massive margins with non-college white men and the fact that even white men with college degrees narrowly went for Trump, and Harris just simply could not make up that ground. Democratic voter turnout appears to be way off. Biden got 81 million votes in 2020 to Trump's 74 million. Trump is on pace to get close to that, but Harris may come up some 10 million votes short of Biden's 2020 total. Her declines were acute in blue states she won. For example, she was off roughly 900,000 votes in New York, 500,000 in Jersey, and Maryland, 300,000 in Massachusetts, and 100,000 in Virginia. Democrats will have to do some soul searching on the way forward. Harris narrowly lost the suburbs, and maybe more notably, voters who make between 30,000 and 100,000 a year voted for Trump. Harris won those who make more than 100,000 a year, a group Republicans used to win. In other words, Trump won the working and middle class, while Democrats won over college-educated people who are financially better off. That's a shift in American politics, and unless the Democratic Party can figure out how to win those voters again and not continue to get blown out in rural areas, they are in danger of becoming a party that is strictly for the elites. And there are not enough of those voters for Democrats to win. Let's move to the next article. Donald Trump won more black voters than any Republican in 48 years. That's very interesting. President-elect Donald Trump won more black voters than any Republican candidate was able to do in nearly 50 years, an analyst said Friday. CNN's Henry Enton looked at different demographics in the 2024 election, finding big gains for the GOP candidate compared to previous election cycles. Trump's voter base remained white and working class people, but the rise in the number of other groups, including Black, Hispanic, and first-time voters, allowed him a pathway to the White House. All right. Let's see. It says the shift among Black voters came from younger men. In Wisconsin, for example, Trump's support among that group more than doubled. Nationally, he roughly doubled his support among Black men under 45 compared to 2020, with about 3 in 10 in this age group voting for him. In total, 21% of Black men voted for Trump, which was 2% more than in 2020. All right, so here's some key facts about Black eligible voters. This is from Pew Research. Looks like this was, it looks like this article was January 10th. Yeah, I think it was made January 10th. So let's get into it. It says the number of Black eligible voters in the United States is projected to reach 34.4 million in November 2024, after several years of modest growth. And Black eligible voters stand out for turnout rates that are higher than among Latino and Asian eligible voters. All right. Black voters could play an important, and in this case, did play an important role in determining the outcome of key 2024 elections, including for U.S. president. In Georgia, a closely watched swing state, okay, remember, this is prior to the election, okay, that this Pew Research article came out. It says Black Americans account for a third of eligible voters. All right. In 2020, 92% of single race Black non-Hispanic voters cast a vote for Democrat Joe Biden, while only 8% backed Republican Donald Trump, according to a Pew Research Center analysis of validated voters. All right. So as you can see on the top right of your screen here, it says Black eligible voter population in the United States is projected to reach 34.4 million. All right, that's up 7% from 2020. Looks like in 2024, the Hispanic population to vote is 36,200,000. All right, Black 34 million, Asian 15 million, which totals approximately 246 million. All right, that's a 12% change since 2020 for Hispanic, 7% for Black, 15% for Asian, and 3% overall total. All right, so let's look at some of the exit polls here. And let me blow this up a little bit so I can see the top here. It says exit polls show majority of Black men and women voted for Kamala Harris. All right, so I know there's been some rumblings out there saying that, oh yeah, Black people voted all the way for Trump. No, not necessarily, but as we could see by the chart and what's been said in a lot of these articles that we've been reading, is that the numbers that did vote or didn't vote for Kamala but did vote for Trump were significant enough to swing the vote. It says despite much hand wringing and about whether Black men would jump ship from the Democratic Party and vote in droves for Donald Trump, election exit polls tell a different story. Early exit polls from the Washington Post show that 78% of Black men voted for Kamala Harris. The vice president's numbers were just 1 point under those who voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Nevertheless, Trump still made notable gains with Black men, earning an estimated 20% of Black male voters per Politico. In specific states like North Carolina, Black male voters did break for Trump, with 1 in 5 Black men voting for him. which was twice the support in 2020, according to CBS exit polls. According to Washington Post exit polls, Black women overwhelmingly voted for Harris, with 92% voting for her. That is a very high percentage, even higher than the number of Black women who voted for Biden in 2020. So that's very interesting that even in the percentage-wise, right, in this race, Black women voted at a higher rate than they did in 2020, but Kamala still lost. All right, so let's go over some of these numbers down here in this graph. It says white men for Kamala voted 39%, which is, let's see, 30% of the voters. White men voted 39% for Kamala, 59% for Trump. White women, 47% for Kamala, 52% for Trump. 78% Black men, and 20% for Black men voted for Trump, 78% for Kamala. Black women at 92% for Donald Trump, 7%. Hispanic Latino men, 6% of the vote. That's 44% for Kamala, 54% for Trump. Hispanic Latino women, that's 61% for Kamala and 37% for Trump. All of the voters, 50%, 5% looks like maybe voted for others, and then 45%, 5% others or not voted, and 45% for Trump. All right, let's see here. Let's move to the next one. All right, so Kamala, she raised more than $1 billion for her presidential campaign, which ultimately failed. This is an article from the New Republic. It says, in the afterglow of stunning defeat, some Democrats are now asking how she could have possibly spent anywhere near that much money and still lose or lost her shot at the White House. The Harris campaign finished out the race with at least $20 million in debt. What? Two sources familiar told Political's Christopher Catalego, who wrote on X Wednesday night that of the $1 billion Harris had raised, only $118 million remained in cash as of October 16th. With the realization that all of the spending ultimately accomplished very little and cost the party control of the White House and Senate, Democrats are now beginning to point fingers. Quote, we spent money in stupid ways because we had a really bad strategy, end quote, a former consultant to the DNC told Puck's Tara Palmieri. He cited money sent to the fund Representative Colin Allred's failed challenge against Texas Senator Ted Cruz, as well as money directed to help in Iowa, a state Democrats never, ever win. Instead of owning any mistakes or being transparent about the voter data and the strategies that were so obviously wrong, they shut off their Twitter account and are patting each other on the back, end quote. The former consultant said, we dug out of a deep hole, but not enough. Inside Harris's crumbled campaign, some feel that they were misled about her chances and led to believe it would be a margin of error race. In reality, Trump blew apart Harris's play for the blue wall states and beat her by more than 4 million votes. Quote, people are depressed and frustrated about the overconfident leadership of the campaign, end quote. One staffer told Axios. One Biden staffer put it more simply, quote, how did you spend $1 billion and not win what the F star to the star to the star, star, star? Kamala Harris campaign's election eve concert said to cost up to $20 million, as staff vendors fear they won't be paid. All right, this is a news article from the New York Post. Finger pointing has erupted over the Kamala Harris campaign, blowing up to $20 million on swing state concerts Monday night, hours before the VP's spectacular election loss to Donald Trump, prompting concern that everyday staff and vendors won't get paid amid reports the campaign is in debt by the same amount. Members of the defeated Harris team tell the Post that the concerts had a ruinous effect on the Democratic campaign's coffers, and that fact was no secret, with one planned performance by 90s alt-right goddess Alanis Morissette getting scrapped to save money. The 7 swing state concerts on election eve featured performances by John Bon Jovi in Detroit, Christina Aguilera in Las Vegas, Katy Perry in Pittsburgh, and Lady Gaga in Philadelphia, with 2 Chainz joining Harris on November 2nd, 3 days before the election, for an 8th concert in Atlanta. So this was very interesting. The Black Caucus actually did approach Harris about running a campaign to reach out for undecided Black voters. Okay, regardless if we agree or disagree with the Black Caucus, I think it's very interesting that they actually did reach out to the campaign. But it looks like the Kamala Harris presidential campaign rejected the offer. It says Kamala Harris's presidential campaign rejected an offer in late summer to spend millions to persuade and turn out Black voters, a group that Donald Trump made significant inroads with on his way to returning to presidency. The Congressional Black Caucus brought the Harris campaign a $10 million plan in September to mobilize undecided Black voters in key swing states, according to a memo viewed by Politico. It was a move that the campaign ultimately rebuffed, according to 2 people familiar with the matter who were granted anonymity to discuss private conversations. But the article goes on, it says, but though the Harris team rejected the bus tour, it had already started implementing some of the items outlined in the plan. That included tapping social media influencers for voter engagement and holding rallies and established civil and labor organizations. Additionally, the Black Caucus proposal pitched working with Latino and Asian American and Pacific Island organizations who were accustomed to building multiracial coalitions to win elections. According to the memo, the push, according to the document, aimed not to duplicate the campaign's effort, but to add value to the outreach Harris was already doing. The plan also called for a dinner headlined by the vice president in September, looking to raise $1 million with an asking price of $5,000 per attendee. All right, so just wanted to briefly go over, well, actually, technically, that wasn't briefly, but, these were some of the items that I wanted to mention about the 2024 U.S. presidential election and for our potential and future legislative members that are going to be going both for Republican and Democrats. That's in your local governments and the federal governments, that they really need to listen to their constituents, and that the Black grassroots and the community do have a say, and we can swing votes. So if y'all out there, if y'all listening, please listen to your constituents, because, hey, you never know, you might be getting out of the paint. All right, so wanted to tap into that. So let's go into Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, he did have, I think it was about a 12-15 minute press release. I did watch it. But I just wanted to put up a clip about it. But let's go into it, and then we'll actually get in some of the preliminary results out here in California. All right, let me load it up. Let me cue it up. Where is it at? Okay, here we go. Here's California Governor Gavin Newsom.
Everybody taking care of themselves, and I think that cannot be understated. The importance of having a little grace and a little humility in terms of what we've all been through over the course of the last, not just few days and over the course of many months as it relates to this campaign. But let's be candid, over the course of the last many years, not just as it relates to the pandemic, but what happened in the first term of the Trump administration, the fear and anxiety that ensued after January 6th, make up within these courts. And so we're preparing a litigation posture that is going to be a little more aggressive, a little bit more sober. We're not naive about the areas where he'll attack. Obviously, women's rights broadly defined, not just access to abortion, but we're all concerned about access to contraception. Comstack, I mean, we're thinking through all of those things. We're looking as well at building partnerships. You know, there's that old African proverb, you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. So we're looking at building alliances with other states. We did that on reproductive care, and we think that's a great model. We want to expand that. We're really proud California leading in that space. Obviously on broader issues of democracy and the environment, I think we can do even more in that space. We have a U.S. Climate Alliance where we're doing just that, but we want to expand that further. Litigation, posture, and strategy. But look, I think he's going to come harder. He's going to come faster. Executive orders, day one. We're taking him at his word. I'm taking him at his promises. And, you know, I think just as it relates to mass deportation, where he doubled down on that just yesterday and reported today with Kristen Walker in a conversation she had. What state is more impacted by that than California? The impact that would have on the economy, the chilling impact that would have on the economy, the tentpole of the U.S. economy, California's innovation, not just Central Valley, but Silicon Valley. You cannot understate that. He wants to attack in the Project 2025 legal immigration. I'm in Ronald Reagan's old office, where we talked about the life force of immigrants. He talked about the life force of newcomers in his last great speech, Ronald Reagan. I'm trying to defend, it's just this great irony, a Democrat trying to defend Ronald Reagan's legacy and Richard Nixon's legacy as it relates to the Clean Air Act. I am not here to romanticize this moment by any stretch, and that's why we are calling and have called for an emergency special session of our state legislature, firmly focused on the values we hold dear that I think are universal values and are American values as it relates to freedoms and individual liberty, as it relates to the issues of reproductive freedom in particular, as it relates to the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water, and environmental stewardship, planting firmly our feet as it relates to continuing to advance our low carbon green growth strategies. To do the same as it relates to vulnerable communities. We're not going to shrink and we're not going to shy or fall prey to the rhetoric around demeaning and belittling vulnerable communities, scapegoating vulnerable communities. We're going to have their back. We're going to have your back. Even if you don't live in the state of California, we're going to have your back. We're going to assert ourselves from a position, not just authority as the 5th largest economy in the world, but a position, and I say that in the context of formal authority, but in the position of moral authority.
All right, so that was California Governor Gavin Newsom. Once again, let me make sure my audio is good. All right, I think my audio should be good to go. So, as you heard from the governor, he wants to do a special emergency session coming up in December, dealing with some of the items that you can see on your screen: protecting fundamental civil rights, tackling the climate crisis, supporting immigrant families, and safeguarding reproductive rights. Now, for those who haven't been following Emin the Mass Media Group and what's going on here in California and Coalition for Just and Equitable California, CJEC, please like, share, and subscribe, and also go and support CJEC at cjec-official.org. There's a lot of finger pointing on what happened to the two bills, the Fund for Reparations and the CAFA agency. between the governor, between the CLBC, and also between some of the financial departments about what they wanted to do, how they wanted to change a lot of what, shout out to Senator Bradford, who is the author of the fund and CAFA, that they wanted to change a lot of the language in that, right? And he was part of that eventually came out into the public. So we definitely need to stay informed to see what's going on in 2025, because the CLBC, out of everybody with California, he was talking about, California being the 5th largest economy and being the forerunners or the front runners, of a lot of things, a lot of industry and legislation out here. But it's a dang shame because California, unfortunately, dropped the ball seriously. And in 2025, we are looking for our legislation not to drop the ball in 2025, because like with Kamala, who knows, these legislators might be out the paint. All right. But I do want to share my screen here. We're going to be wrapping it up shortly. And we're going to go over some of the California unofficial results right now. But they do actually have a way to go. I'm going to blow up my screen so hopefully everybody can see it. And then I'll go over the few comments and then we will wrap it up. All right, let me see if this is better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so he did mention immigration, and then we're going to go into undocumented population. So this was a Pew Research. Let's see here. When was this done? January of this year, 2024. All right. It says immigration flows increased in the past year. This is once again here in California. These are not overall numbers for the United States. Immigration flows increased in the past year, but remain low by historic standards. That's interesting. From 2010 to 2022, California's immigrant population increased only by 3%, by about 310,000, compared to a 14% or 1.2 million increase from 2000 to 2010, and a 37% or 2.4 million increase, 2.4 million rise in the 1990s. Okay, so as we do know, the Black American descendant population is teetering between like 2 million ish, around there, maybe less, but we'll say 2 million. 5 to 6% of the population here in California. So just according to this, I mean, the immigrant population is basically now the same size as the Black American descendant population. This fall off in international immigration has contributed to the slowdown of California's overall population growth in recent decades. Recent Department of Finance estimates show that net immigration to California rose to 116,000 from July 2022 to July 2023. Between July 2020 and July 2021, California's net immigration flow was at its lowest point at 27,400 in at least 3 decades, a consequence of the pandemic and policies that limited travel. The vast majority of immigrants in California are documented residents. In 2022, more than half, 54% of California's immigrants were naturalized U.S. citizens. This share has increased consistently since 1990, when only 31% of immigrants were naturalized. The Pew Research Center estimates that 1.85 million immigrants in California were undocumented in 2021. I want to repeat that again. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I can highlight this. I think, can we highlight? Yeah, that's on my screen. It says the Pew Research Center estimates that 1.85 million immigrants in California were undocumented in 2021, down from 2.80 million in 2007. The share of immigrants who are undocumented declined from 28% in 2007 to 18% in 2021. In 2021, 82% were either citizens or had some other legal residency status. All right, so the article goes on, talks about where it's like the concentration of immigrants are populated here in California. Goes half of immigrants are from Latin America, but a majority of recent arrivals are from Asia. Very interesting. A lot of people don't talk about, Asian immigrants coming into California because the Asian population is steadily increasing as well. I know a lot of people talk about people coming from, the borders, especially Mexico, right? But I mean, look at this chart. It says California has large numbers of immigrants from dozens of countries. The leading countries of origin are Mexico, 3.8 million, the Philippines, 807,300, China, 784,000, India, 580,000, and Vietnam at 521,000. Among immigrants who arrived between 2013 and 2022, more than half, 51%, were born in Asia, while 35% were born in Latin America. If you have a chance, you can go and do more research on this. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that point. California has a high immigrant population here in the state. All right, and so if California can do something for the immigrants, especially those that are undocumented, can definitely do something for its American citizens, especially those who built this country. All right, and we're looking forward to that happening in 2025. All right, so let's go to, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and we'll go to some of the ballot measures here in California. So as of, it looks like November 9th, the bonds for public school and college facilities, it's currently winning at yes. Constitutional rights to marriage, that's winning as yes. Bonds for water, wildfire, and climate risk, that's a yes. Bonds for affordable housing and infrastructure, that's currently no. Eliminates forcing inmates to work, that's Proposition 6. The previous one was Proposition 5. Eliminates forcing inmates to work. This was actually one of the recommendations for the California Reparations Task Force. That's at a no, and that would end slavery in the Constitution here in California. Fortunately, that is not passing currently, but as you can see on the screen, these are unofficial election results. Results will be certified by December 13th, 2024. So we do have quite a ways. Actually, not that far, but it is a little far out. But you never know between now and then. All right, Proposition 32 raises minimum wage. That's currently a no. Local government residential rent control. That's currently a no. That's Proposition 33. Proposition 34 restricts spending of prescription revenues. That's winning. Provides permanent funding for Medi-Cal. That's 35. That's winning. And increase sentencing for certain drug and theft crimes. That's Proposition 36. And that is currently winning. So we will keep everyone up to date as we get closer to the ballots here in California. All right, so we want to go over some of the potential California Legislative Black Caucus members. These are potential. Let me share my other screen because I might need to blow it up for everyone so you guys can see it a little better. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to try to blow up. I'm going to start on the Senate side. Okay, so let's see here. Is that a little better? Yep. So we're going to start at the Senate side. There's a very close race between Michelle Chambers and Laura Richardson. That's down there in District 35. They will be taking the place of California Senator Stephen Bradford. That's his district that he currently occupies. Very close race. 50%, 50.9% for Laura Richardson, and Michelle Chambers is looking at 49%. So, whew, that's a very, very, very close one. It's just interesting as we're going through these numbers, how, if you notice in the preliminary, how kind of these numbers do match up going into the general election. So it's interesting, these precursor numbers. They're pretty close. I mean, I haven't seen too much variation between preliminary and general election, but as we go through it, you'll see that actually some of these candidates or these opponents, especially from the incumbents, they actually are doing pretty well considering, as I said before, from the preliminary results. So let's see here. So we actually have District 39 as well with Akilah Weber. She was in the Assembly, now she's moving to the Senate. And that is Dr. Shirley Weber's daughter, who is currently the Secretary of State. She's running against Bob Devine. Currently, she's winning 62% of the vote versus Bob Devine at 37% of the vote. And also, which we left her off, and I want to give a shout out to my good brother, Antonio Harvey of the California Black Media, who mentioned Jovanka Beckless, who might be a potential CLBC member. So we definitely added her to the list of potential CLBC members. She's running in District 7 against Jesse Arreguin. It looks like he has close to 60% of the vote versus her 40% of the vote. But once again, results are not over, and you never know. All right, so let's see here. So we're going to start off with District 55 with Isaac Bryan and Keith Cascio. That's down there in Southern California, Culver City, Leimert Park area. Isaac Bryan, his preliminary numbers were at 83%, so it looks like those projected numbers are holding steady, all right, at 80%. And then Cascio is at 16%, and he has increased by 3 percentage points at 19%. But we do want to actually give a shout out to Keith Cascio for coming through. If you have yet to see the reparations town hall that was held down in Leimert Park, hosted by the Center of Black Power, Black Lives Matter, Los Angeles, and Coalition for Just and Equitable California, CJEC. Please go check that out on Emin the Mass Media Group on our YouTube page. So shout out to Keith Cascio and all the candidates for coming through. All right, so let's go to our assembly, another assembly member, Lori Wilson. All right. District 11, that's up here in Northern California. She has a close to 60% lead versus Dave Enos. He is a Republican. Lori Wilson, she is currently a member of the CLBC. Actually, she is the president of, or the chair of the CLBC currently. All right, so she's at 60%. Dave Enos is at 41%. Let's see. Let's go to the right. Or you know what? Let's go down. District 7, we have Porsche Middleton versus Josh Hoover. Currently, Josh is winning at 53% of the votes versus Porsche Middleton at 46% of the votes. That's up here in Northern California, near the Sacramento area. We have Tina McKenna, who is currently a member of the CLBC. She's winning at 76% versus Al Hernandez, a Republican, at 23%. Tina McKenna is a Democrat. All right, let's go up to District 39. We have Juan Carrillo versus Paul Marsh. Juan Carrillo is a Democrat. Paul Marsh is a Republican. It looks like, dang, these numbers are actually really close to the prelims. Juan Carrillo is at 57%. and Paul Mars is at 42%. So that's down there in Southern California. We have in Stockton and Tracy, which is about an hour and some change from Sacramento. That's District 13. We have Rhodesia Ransom at 56%. She's running. She's a Democrat. She's beating Denise Aguilar Mendez at 44%, a Republican. So if those numbers remain as such going into the tally, looks like Rhodesia Ransom is potentially going to be a CLBC member. And we have District 18 in the Bay Area. We have Mia Bonta, who is the wife to the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, here in California. She's currently leading at close to 80% of the votes versus Andre Sanford, who has 20% of the votes. So got to give credit to Andre. You know, he, from my understanding, just came really into this race earlier this year. So, you know, got to give him credit. We actually had a chance to interview him on this platform. So considering, I mean, he came in with what, 5% coming into this, and now he's at 20%. So that is a great increase. And just from the work that he has been doing, you got to give him credit, especially as an independent, because as you can see, a lot of these candidates are either Democrat or Republican. So yes, Mia Bonta is currently winning in District 18. All right, so let's go at the top again, and then we will move down. We have Sade El Harari in District 57. She is not a Republican, a Democrat versus the Democrat Efrain Martinez. It looks like Sade has 60% versus 40%, or close to 40% for Efrain Martinez. She is currently winning in that race. And I believe, if I'm correct, District 57 is Reggie Jones Sawyer, who is a member of the CLBC. I think she will be, if she remains with these particular numbers, will be taking his place in that district. All right, we have Mike Gibson at 70% versus Lydia Gutierrez at 29%. Very interesting. Her numbers were actually really low coming into the general election, but she went from basically no percentage points up to close to 30% percentage points coming into the general. So she made up a lot between the preliminaries or the primaries, I should say, to currently in the general election. So it looks like Mike Gibson, who is currently a CLBC member and incumbent, at this point will most likely, take it, but, votes are still being counted, so you just never know. District 77, we have Tasha Boner Horvath versus James Brown down there in Encinitas. And let's see here. It looks like she currently has 60% of the votes versus James Brown with the E at 40% of the vote. So there you go there. And we have a couple more. We have Corey Jackson versus Ron Edwards. Corey Jackson is currently a member of the CLBC, incumbent. It's down there in Southern California, versus Ron Edwards, who is a Republican. Corey Jackson is currently in the lead at 55% versus Ron Edwards at 44%. That's a tight race, actually, at 10% percentage points. So you never know what's going to happen with the tally in that race, but that's currently what the current percentage points are in that race. All right, that's District 60. District 72, we have Dom Jones versus Diane Dixon. This is in cities of Huntington Beach and Newport Beach. That's down there in Southern California. That's at 40%. All right, for Dom Jones, and Dianne Dixon, a Republican, at 60%. And Dom Jones is a Democrat. And we have District 79. 2 Democrats are running down there in 79. We have Colin Parent versus Lachey Sharp Collins. Very, 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 very close race. But Lachey is currently in the lead at 53% versus Colin Parent at 46%. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that is currently the potential CLBC members. Once again, the unofficial election results should be certified by December 13th, 2024. And at that time, we will know who our CLBC members will be. All right, so let me go ahead and get ready to wrap this up soon. All right, let's see. We have a few comments. So thank you for coming through. And those who are going to be watching this on the replay, really appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe to your number one source for news and reparations. Trump allegedly said he'll pay the $20 million. Thank you, Danette, for that. I am assuming you're talking about the $20 million that's supposedly Kamala is in debt. That is actually quite hilarious. All right. And yes to California reparations. Absolutely. Yes to California lineage-based reparations. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. I don't know when, but we're going to try to get into what's going to be happening and what's going to be ahead in 2025. All right, with the Trump administration. It's going to be a lot of shaking up that's going to be happening. And so we want to definitely be on the forefront of that shakeup so we can always push for what we need to push for and report to the community, because that's what we do. All right. Once again, please like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully you have a wonderful day today. Today is Veterans Day. So shout out to all our veterans who have protected this great country that is built by the people who were enslaved here in the United States of America. So thank you. We honor you. Those who are not with us, but you're here with us in spirit, and those who are currently living with us, fighting for the protection of America. Once again, you guys have a great day today. And yes, thank you, Danette. We appreciate you too. All right, family. On that note, you have a wonderful one, and we will be talking to you shortly. Stay tuned and tapped in. And on that note, peace and definitely lineage-based reparations. We're out.